I'm Emily, Senior TC here, and I'm going to hopefully show you guys how to install a MID server on a Linux-based EC2 instance. So in order to install your MID server on your EC2 instance, you do need a couple of things. The first thing you'll need is a MID server user with the MID server role. And then the second thing you will need is your actual EC2 instance. So I'm going to go ahead and spin up an EC2 instance really quickly for you guys just to show you. So from my AWS console here in the EC2 dashboard, I'm going to go to Launch Instance. And then we're going to go through these steps. EC2 instances are really customizable, but for this, we're going to stick to the default and free tier options. So we're just going to call this Share the Wealth MID instance. I'm going to stick with the default AWS API here. It is Linux based and it's, like I said, free tier eligible, and it's perfect for what we're about to do. All of this I'm going to keep. The key pair would be used if we were going to be remotely accessing our instance, but I'm going to connect directly through AWS. So I'm just going to pick one I already have. All of this looks fine. So I'm going to launch my instance. Okay. And now it's starting up. So we'll give it a minute. And as soon as it's done, we will get started. So now that we are up and running, I'm going to hit connect. So I'm connecting directly through AWS. So like I said, I'm not going to need that key pair. What I am going to do though is do the Webget call. And let me show you guys what I'm doing. So from the MID server installation, the downloads, you would just copy this download link right here. And then directly from your instance, you're going to do that. So you're going to call basically, or just pull this file, and it's downloading right now. And once it's done, we'll go to the next step. So the next step, now that this is completed successfully and it's saved our file, we need to access it. So I'm going to use the sudo command and then I need to put the package name, which is just this last part right here. Okay, so it's going to verify and then continue with the installation. Okay, so now we've installed this. It's downloaded on our EC2 instance, and this path right here is where it is located. To get there though, when Scott and I were testing this a couple of weeks ago, we ran into a problem, and you need to switch to the root user in order to do that. So we're going to do the sudo su command here, and now you can see we have switched to the root user. So the next thing I'm going to do is I need to go up in the directory to see that file. So I'm going to change directory twice, and then I'm going to list out my files to make sure. Okay. So yeah, I can see everything. And now I need to go into the opt folder here.
So yeah, some people are asking questions about explanation of some of these commands. So wget is a command that it retrieves contents from web servers. So it's like clicking on the download link and it gets downloaded to your downloads folder in Windows or any other system, Mac, whatever you used to. That we wanted to show Linux because it's more of a niche type thing. Emily had a client that wanted to do theirs on Linux, so we had to go learn how to do that. And so we wanted to show this one because it's kind of more complicated. People aren't used to them. Businesses use them a lot. I see a lot of people using Linux mid servers. So we just wanted to show you how to do that. And then mine are in Windows, so I'm not going to show you how to install mine in Windows, but I used a Windows mid server myself. I took the easy way out. But Emily's just wanted to show, how to do something that's kind of more complex.
I wanted you to know how to walk through this with a blindfold on. So once we have our directory and we can see our opt folder, we're going to list all the files there. So I'm going to use the ls-a. And then we see this ServiceNow file. So we need to navigate into that. So I'm going to cd ServiceNow. And then again, ls-a. This is just so you guys can see where everything is in these directories. And that's our mid file. So we need that too. So I'm going to cd into the mid file. And again, a little repetitive here, but okay.
You could definitely navigate straight here with one command to cd into it to go
Yes.
over to the file, but she just wants to kind of illustrate, where
Right.
exactly it downloads to.
And in the document we're going to share with you guys after this, we have everything explained and like what the commands mean, why you have to use them. But it is, I mean, if you want extra slash or whatever, you have to start over. So it's, yeah. So now we're here and I want to launch this installer file. So to do that, I'm going to just do. Okay. So now we're going to run that. All right. So the next things you're going to need for this part are your instance URL. So I've got that. When it asks you if you want to use proxy, we were just answering no for the purpose of getting it installed. And same thing here, we answered no. Okay. So now this is when earlier when I said you'll need your mid server user, this is why you'll need it because this is how we're logging in right here. So mine is mid server 1. And now my password. So right here, if you type or just copy and paste your password like I just did, that cursor is not going to move. So just make sure right here, my username and password are valid. So I'm fine to move forward. If for whatever reason you mistype it, you'll have to restart and just run the installer again. For this, I'm going to answer no. All right. And now I need to name my mid server and provide a little bit more information. So we'll call this one AWS Linux mid, and then my unique name, and then the long name. Okay, so for this here, I don't have that much space, but I'm going to install it anyway, since that is, it's the only thing we're using this server for. And then my non-root user is just EC2-user. Let's see. Pretty sure I answered yes there last time. Okay.
I don't know do we know what happens if you answer yes to some of those things? I don't know.
For proxy and the mutual authentication, I'm not sure, to be completely honest. I hadn't played around with that yet. So now everything's done. The mid server is installed and we see it running as a service. So before I give it back to Scott, I'm just going to quickly go into my ServiceNow instance and make sure of that. So right here, this is our AWS Linux mid. I'm going to validate it really quick. We'll save that. And now my mid server is validated, it is up and running, and it is ready to be used.
I'm going to go through how to set up cloud provisioning and let me go first with the plugin. So there's a plugin there's many ways to do cloud discovery. I'm showing you how to do it with cloud provisioning and governance. That's the method that I became familiar with. There are a few other different ways that you can discover things in AWS. I'm going to cover how to do it with cloud provisioning and governance. First of all, I was going to demonstrate the plugin that needs to be installed, and it's called Cloud Provisioning. Yeah, so it's the Cloud Provisioning and Governance Core, and that consists of 2 plugins, Cloud Config Management and Cloud API. So these are the 2 things that come with that, and that's all you have to have installed, I think, in order to get this to work. What that does give you is over here on the left-hand side. Yeah, there goes Cloud Provisioning and Governance. It gives you this module, Cloud Provisioning and Governance, and I believe Cloud API as well. You don't have to use any of this up here. I haven't. I've just been using this section of it right here. So to start off, though, we've already got the mid server installed. I want to go back over into AWS, and I'll try to explain as much as I can about AWS and how that kind of works. First of all, I want to mention that I'm using 2 accounts. I've got a master account here, and then I've got a what's known as an organizational account. It's a member account is what we're going to call it. I'll call it demo account 1. It just goes to show most clients have this type of hierarchy. They have one main AWS account, and then they have accounts underneath that. So I didn't want to go with a simple, scenario of just having one account, because that's just not very real out there in the world. I kind of started out that path with just my main account, but then I was like, oh, Gartner has like 100 other sub accounts in their main account. And the reason for that is you can set up the authentication with the master account, and then in ServiceNow, you allow to assume a role into all of the other accounts. So it's a way to set up one thing in ServiceNow, and then it allows you to authenticate to every other account and discover anything in all the accounts. So it's just a way to, make it a lot easier. So first, I'm going to show what you have to do is you have to go into services here and open IAM. That's where you manage the permissions. I already have it up here in the purple window. So the first thing you're going to do is we got to create a role. And so that role is going to be this ServiceNow EC2 role. And this is the role we're going to assign our mid server. So I don't know if Emily, she didn't necessarily have to show that part. She just showed creating it. Well, the next step you're wanting to do is make this role and then apply this role to that server. And you can kind of do that in the opposite order if you wanted to. You could come in here and do this first. And then as you're building it, select this role for that device to have. It doesn't matter either way. But the main things you have to get out of making this role is, I'm going to make this a little bigger. Hopefully it helps. I can't switch as easy across my screens, but the main thing you're going to want to do is in here is set up the permissions. Read-only access is really all you need here. And you need to have it also trust this ServiceNow assume role. That's the one I was talking about earlier, where you can assume that role and get into any other account. And I'll show that one in just a little bit. The next thing is you want to have a trust relationship. And this is kind of along the path of the APIs that it uses. So it's going to it needs access to allow EC2, Amazon.com, and the assume role into that, and basically use that service. That's a API service. And then later on, I'll go over EKS, which is kind of Kubernetes. That's what I'll show later. That's why this is in here. Doesn't have to be in here if you just want to do EC2 servers. EC2 is Elastic Cloud is what that stands for. Virtual machines is what that really relates to. So that's that. So that's where you have to have this in here. Since I've already got it created, I'm not showing how I created it. If you need to see that, I can do that later. But that's the 2 things that matter here is the trust relationship. And then these permissions you set up, view, read only or view. I have both in here. Really, you only need read only. This one doesn't necessarily matter. Next, I'll get into this ServiceNow assumed role. So you create that here in the master account, the ServiceNow assumed role. And inside of that role, you have to say that this right here is called ARN. Usually there's an account number right here, and that account number you can see up here for this role is my master account's account number. What this is saying is any role with the name ServiceNow EC2 role is trusted to assume role across the whole company because there's a star here. So it lets you go anywhere in the whole system to any account. So that's what that is saying. And then I'll go into that role here. It's pretty much going to show the same thing. AWS organization access. Read-only access is all you need. This is what I'm using for Kubernetes. We can worry about that later. This is for where your mid server is at. So the ServiceNow assumed role has to have the exact role that is for the EC2 server. And so that on my environment is sitting in my demo account, my member account, which is below that purple window that we were just in, that master account. So that role the roles are different per account. They can have the same name, but that account number is what is different. So I set up the same exact roles name wise in the other environment as well, but they are separate. You do have to make them in each place. And so as you can see here, this is the ARN for the EC2 role here. My mid server, I'll go ahead and show that. That is in the EC2 section. You can see here what instances you have and which ones are running, but you also have different data centers. So I've got to figure out where I put it. There it is, North Virginia. So I've got a Linux mid also, and I've got, this is on Windows. So here's my mid server. I'm going to just go into it to show you where you set the IAM role. There it is. And so my mid server has that role. That's the role I was just showing. So back to what I was talking about on the other window, the assumed role has to trust the role for the EC2 server, EC2 server that you, mid server that you have. And if you have multiple, it's going to be the same role for each one of them. But you only have to have a mid server in one of the member accounts. You don't have to have a mid server in each account. You can just have it in one. As long as you set this part up, this assumed role part up correctly here in AWS, that's what's going to set you up for success. And this was honestly one of the hardest parts about this for me to grasp when I first saw it. So there's a video I did watch that explains it, and I'll share that link with you. Maybe you'll understand them better than you understand me. I don't know. But so I just covered all these accounts, assigned it to the mid server. Now I think we can switch over to ServiceNow and show you the ServiceNow steps. We've got this installed. Let's go over here and set up the cross assume role. Oh, you got to set up the account. Go to the service accounts and set up the accounts. I, of course, already done this. So this is where I was talking about the account ID. That matters. I'll go ahead and do new. That way we can see what the form looks like. And really all you can do, you can name it whatever you want. And then all you need is the account ID. You get that from AWS. And that would be this account ID here at the top right of your corner, right corner. You put that in there. You do not have to put any credentials. You do not have to put the URL. All you have to do here is then select the data center type. And so I'm covering AWS. That's so obviously you pick the AWS data center. It's generally the same concept for Azure. That's what I'm probably going to go try to conquer next, is that one. Hope, and maybe if someone out there has already done Azure, they could show this too. But for each one of these, you'd have to go get an account, you know, in each one of them. I'm on a free account right now with AWS. So yeah, so you pick this data center type, then it lets you pick whether or not this is a master account or not. My master account is the one that has that. So I'm going to switch back over to that and just open up one of those records. Yes, leave. So the master account will look like this. So yeah, you say, yeah, this is a master account, and the assessor account is where it's the account where the mid server is at. So I made this super simple in mine. I don't have more than one demo account or assessor account. I've just got this one. So that's where my mid server is physically built at. And that's where you have to pick that. So the master, whenever you set up Discovery, you set it up on the master account. You do not set it up on the demo account or the assessor account. You only have to set it up on the master account, and it will go out and discover anything that is a child of the master account. Next, I'll switch over to the demo account and just show you what that form looks like. Pretty much similar thing. You just have a parent and you don't select master. You don't have to select assessor account because it is the assessor account. So there we go. Once you do that, the next step, whenever you create these two accounts, is you have to set up the cross assumed role. So first I went into service accounts. That's where I'm at now. Next, you go down to AWS cross assume role parameters. And this is very important too. This is what is going to allow you to look into all the other accounts that are in the system. So here you need to get the ARN access role name. So that's the role name from, I think, my master account. Let's go look and see. Yes. So this is my master account. And this is for the ServiceNow assume role that I made. It needs the ARN for that. So that's what you go over here, you put here, and then you say which account it's related to. It's related to the master account. This is the key in ServiceNow that lets it go discover any other account under the master account. So this is very important to get this right. Okay, once you have that set up, you can go set up your discovery schedule and start discovering. I've already done that, but I'll just go show how I set it up. I usually just go to the master account. You can go directly to discovery schedules and do it. You know, there's 100 ways to do things in ServiceNow, but logically, I feel like this is the best way to do it. You come here and you first would click Discover Data Centers. This is the first true test to see if it works at all, is by doing that right there. And while that's running, I'll again explain, this is credentialless discovery. So we haven't put it, if you have noticed, we've put no credentials in here at any time. You don't have to, it's credentialless. There we go. We got back, completed, reload this form to see an updated data center list. And so if I didn't have any in here, this would, have populated for the first time. So it populated all of those. I did not get an error in this discovery status window. So we're good to go. We can move forward. Next, you can click the create discovery schedule. And whenever you do that, I've already got one. So I'm just gonna go through the one that I did set up. So it should already pre-fill a lot of these things for you. But we're going to say select account. You only have to do the master account. Like I said, you do have the choice of however many accounts that you went back and created earlier. It'll also, let me go back one step. It'll fill out all the sub accounts for you. So not a big deal. I've got two. So I made that. You always have to do the first two, the assessor account and the parent account, the main master account. You have to do those two. But let's say you have 10 more child accounts under the master. You don't have to go create those manually. You can simply, in the master account, click the related link, refresh sub accounts, and that will go load all of your sub accounts. It'll run that pattern, come back, and fill all of those out for you. So just want to show that, click that, run it. It's not going to find anything new because, like I said, I've already made it, but I just wanted to go through that step. There we go. So they populated successfully, and they should show here in the cloud service accounts. There's all your sub accounts. It was already there, but hey, if I had more, I could do that. Back to the discovery schedule. Oh, Omar, you asked how I made the sub account. Okay, that's a good thing to cover. And you got to know a little, you got to go study a little bit of AWS to get how that stuff works. It wasn't too hard to figure out what this is, but it's under, whenever you do make an account, which is pretty straightforward, you go to AWS, make yourself an account. You'll kind of be at this place right here. I mean, you won't be on this page exactly, but you'll be able to go up here and create another organization. And this is where you set up that second account. You'll be able to go here and create another, maybe I had to do it from there. I don't remember exactly how I did it, but this is the screen I did it in. You have to have your own, another email. So I just made another Gmail, it's also free, for a year. So eventually I'll have to redo these probably to keep being free. But so I did that. I already had this down here, and then I made this one. That's my account. I could go, make up another email, make another demo account, and have more, children of the master. But for now, just for simplicity, that's the way I've done that. So hopefully that answers your question. You do it here. My screen share box is covering it. Yeah, you can click add an account here, name, email. There you go. So that's how you do that. That's how you get more AWS accounts. But that's it. Like if you get an engagement with a client, this is all done, right? You do not have to worry about, the AWS side of it so much as it's good to get in here and kind of get familiar with it. You don't have to be an expert at AWS. You just kind of have to do these couple of things to make these. I don't understand exactly how all those roles and permissions work. Not great at that myself. I was just able to kind of follow a video along, follow a couple instructions, and I did kind of poke around to understand how those exact roles work. I think because of the ARNs and things like that and an API, that's all you really have to make this work. You don't put any credentials in here at all. We haven't had to do that because of the roles that we've set up in AWS. It's allowing it to work. Okay, so back to where I was at and creating a schedule. This is kind of really the last part of what I wanted to cover here today. Here, it's already pre-selected this, your account ID, credentials. You don't have to select anything, like I said, and then you just pretty much have to give the ARN and then the account for access, that accessor role. That all might be filled out for you. I don't remember. The first time you do it, you might have to put this in there on your own, but I've already got a schedule, so that might be why this works. And you can click test account if you want. I think it already does it when you click it. That's why it already says it's successful. I didn't click it again. And then down here, you can say, it shows you the demo accounts ready. So we'll go to next. Schedule name already exists. So I've already done this. That's the schedule names over here. I just want to go through this so you can see all the steps. There's a good step that I like. over here, it shows, you know, how we discovered all those data centers. That corresponds to, I'll just pick this window. Here's all your data centers over here on the right. So that's a good correlation there to what you're seeing in ServiceNow. For my purposes, it really speeds up discovery if you only pick the ones where you have stuff. Now, at real world scenario, they might have stuff everywhere. I wouldn't suggest making this list smaller, but for myself and me wanting it to be faster, I remove things. I can't.
On one of the latest sessions with the ServiceNow on like item stuff, they suggested that you remove pretty much everything except for the ones data regions that you actually have. So
that's my suggestion too. So yeah, I will remove all of those. I'll leave all the US ones. I might put, I don't know where I have stuff. I'll put them in. I do want to show you that you can discover in different regions. Data centers is what those are. I do want to show that. So I think I have things in a couple different places. And then in this further along we go in the series, I might pop up Kubernetes in the West 1 cluster or something like that. So I'll keep all of these in here. It doesn't take too long to run through those 4. Then you select your mid server. I'm gonna just let it auto select. I really only have 2 mid servers in here, and only my Windows mid server is up and running. So there are some things, there is capabilities that you do need to add to your mid server. So let me go cover that real quick before we finish that thought. So there we go. So I don't know, clients do different things with their mid servers. If you have all capability, you should be fine. But I went ahead and added this just so you can see it. So you can have a capability of just cloud management, especially if it's a mid server it's in AWS and all it's going to be doing is discover AWS things. That's good. That would make sense that you just give it the cloud management capability. But if you don't have all, cloud management is the capability that you need to give your mid server in order for it to have all the patterns and things and APIs on it that it needs to run to discover everything. So, okay, back to the discovery. I usually just set mine. This part really doesn't matter. It's up to you. Because I'm in here on my own, I just usually do once, kind of do an on-demand type of thing. Set it to active, pick your start time, but it's just like any other schedule. You can schedule it however you want to do it. Daily, most clients do it once a day. Or you can do it weekly, especially if you set up. The next thing in my series is it'll mark changes and create it. You can see things being created and see things being changed, and it'll automatically call the instance through API, and you can add things later. So once you set that up, this is less important unless you just kind of want to run this every so often. But yeah, so just come up with whatever schedule you want. I'm not going to finish and run this because it's just going to create something I don't need in here. I'll just go directly to my schedules. Discovery schedules. And there you go. So this is the one I created before. The one below that gets created automatically. So you don't have to create this one. When this one runs, I think for the first time, it creates that second schedule as a child. It'll go run that one. So here it is. I've run this, it looks like 3 times here in this instance, but I'm going to go ahead and run it discovery now. Let's see how long it takes. And while it's running, I'm going to go show you it works. I'm going to go make another server in my system and show you that. It's basically what Emily did. Actually, I'm going to make an RDS instance. RDS stands for relational database. Maybe I have it on my other one. So I'll create another one. I do want to wait till that first one is done though. I don't want to get too much into this. If we want to like create things in here just for testing purposes, I have found that it's better to go with easy create. You don't have to be a database junkie to know some of these things. The cheapest one to go with is MySQL. It's do that and then do free tier. I think all of them have free tier, but if you make the mistake and you don't turn the thing off, these others cost more money than the MySQL one does. So I tend to like go with that one because I feel like it's just cheaper. A lot of this other stuff is if you want to log into the database, build the database, you need to, set up master passwords and things like that. I just want to discover the thing. So I really don't care about that part of it. The name also share the wealth DB. That matters because that's what will show up in the CMDB as. So I'll go create this guy. There we go. It'll take a few minutes to create that. So while that's creating, we're going to run discovery again after that and show you that it pulled that in. I did want to do that. I wanted to demo that because, you know, all this stuff was already in there. And because I've run discovery before. So I just want to show that, you know, it picks up another item whenever you run it. So any questions? You want to break down on patterns and what they're running? Okay, great. That's what we'll do because we're going to see a new device being discovered. And I'll go through that whenever we run this next. So, and that's another reason why I want to do something other than a EC2 instance. The discovery picks up on, you know, which pattern based on what it sees out there as resources. But it does start off as identifying everything in cloud. Gotta figure out where I'm at. Too many tabs and too many windows. So cloud, I think it's cloud resources is what everything is first found under. Yeah, each type has that. So I'm going to go AWS Cloud Resource. Then you have your resource type and class. So if you're familiar with CMDB, classes are everything. So yeah, this is the roles and the policies and those things that I set up, you know, that I was going through earlier to do some of those things. That's those. I thought everything was cloud resource, but apparently I'm wrong. I don't know if you go to AWS, that's where everything is going to go. I'll go to instances so you can see, you know, there's my Linux mid, my demo mid. It knows that my Linux mid is off. This one is on. It gives you all some of the things with that, and it falls under virtual machine instance class. So let me look and see. I'll go through the patterns and kind of show it doing that whenever I do the discovery again. Where was I? Over here. This thing doesn't finish quickly. I'll just go into the older discovery statuses and start showing. So here's all the stuff that it did whenever it ran. I'm going to try to find, that's it, finding the discovery. I want to find one of the servers. I think I know what's going on. I'm looking for the mid servers, and mid servers don't show up as a device. So if I had a device out there that wasn't a mid server, like an EC2 that wasn't a mid server, it would show up. I don't think I've seen my mid server show up in here, but my database should. So let me go run discovery again. Let me double check, see if that's running. It's there. It should pull it in, even though it's starting. So here it is running all the patterns. It's going to get a list of all of the resources and patterns, and it's going to fire off all these patterns for everything that it sees out there. I know that the resources that I have out there, I have EC2 out there, and I have definitely a relational database. So the relational database should be calling, DB cluster. I think it starts with DB cluster. And then when it identifies what type of database, it gets more granular with which pattern fires after that. And we can see that in the discovery log when it's done. You can follow the pattern. I think it's done with that. So let's refresh and see if it's done anything. Yeah, it's almost done. CS service not being used. There we go. Let's check this pattern. If you go through all these steps, you can kind of see, what it's doing. About what it's got a pretty good description on how it's doing. I don't know what else you wanted to know about how they work, but they kind of they see a server, then they go break it down, kind of like a typical discovery. Shazam probe goes and figures out what it is, and then fires off other probes or patterns based on what it sees. Okay, it's complete. I just want to go show that it found the cloud database, STWDB. There it is, and it's even showing the state that I see. Well, it was in modifying earlier before it refreshed. So the next session is going to be me going over here and changing something on the database, turning it off, changing the name, whatever, and then that coming over here automatically and updating the CMDB real time, close to real time. So what it really does is it does a targeted discovery. When it sees a change happen, it just goes, oh, well, I'm going to go discover that specific resource. And that's really what the system is doing. So I'll cover that in the next Share the Wealth, is how to set that up. Thanks for everyone for showing up.